So,
Right.
uh, my sister over here is a big fan of pageants, and she asked me when I told her that I'm going to be talking to you. She was like, "What preparations do you do? Is how would you know when you're ready? How would you like make that step?" So let's pick it up from there. How do you feel about that? Like the preparations
Okay.
and all.
So, as a person who waited 1 year, close to 2 years, before she finally decided that she's going to take the step and join the pageant, here's what I'm going to tell you. You will think that it's not the right time. That's bullshit. Just join.
Hmm.
Like you think you're
Hmm.
not ready or you're not good enough, and it's just not true. I waited 2 years before I joined, and when I did, I wish that I had joined much earlier. I think I don't want to change anything, but I feel like if anything, it taught me that there's no point in waiting to get better at it. Just go for it, and more likely than not you're going to learn and you're going to adapt as you go through it. You can do as much initial preparation as you want to, but really
Hmm.
nothing's going to prepare you for it. Just go
Just
and you
just
will.
jump in it.
Yeah, jump right into it, don't waste time.
Do you think that maybe I could join in one of these years? Probably
For
not.
sure, I think you should go for it. Go for it.
Oh, right. One thing you mentioned was like you were thinking about managing your time between your studies and when you had to enter the pageant. So how did that work out for you later on when you joined in? Did you feel like the time there was really eating up a lot of your schedule?
Oh yeah, so when I'm in uni, I'm not just studying. I also used to debate in uni, and debating took up trainings were twice a week. On top of that, I also used to teach part-time on twice a week as well. So
Wow.
that's 4 days of my weekday gone. And then on weekends, there would occasionally be tournaments, or I would go judge a debate tournament, etc. So on top of all this, I also took up the pageant stuff. And really, it was the whole doing stuff properly. I remember I was sitting for my finals when we were at the house. So I was preparing for my calculus exam the next day while all the girls were asleep. I was sitting
Gosh,
down on
yeah.
my table doing math. And like the next day, I went to school in uni and did the paper, and then came back and joined the next challenge. So really, it was a very tight schedule.
Like one thing, you're studying and then all of a sudden you have to go back and then you have to have multiple things on your mind.
Yeah,
Gosh. And I can feed you on calculus and as well as on that side.
it was
So
so
uh,
difficult.
I want to switch. I want to switch gears a little bit for our audience members here. Tess, you said something I think I find really inspiring, and I thought I wanted to ask you about this during the final sessions when you were asked about what was one of the key issues. You went in and said that your heart went out towards violence towards women, and the fact that very little gender equality is present here in Malaysia. So how did you feel about that? And I understand, besides all your hosting and debating, to push out something like this on a global scale requires a lot of thought into it. So,
Right.
what was it that prompted you?
It really wasn't anything like, oh, I'm gonna say the best thing I can. I genuinely think this is the one thing. So if I'm not mistaken, my question was like, what do you think is the biggest challenge women are facing right now?
Yep,
And I do think the answer is that violence against women exists. So you have things like policies. We want 30% of women in parliament, and we want quota system for
right,
women's in school. And I think that's fantastic. But when that question came up, right, there was also 2 days ago, a Malaysian case went viral. What happened was that this woman was walking in an MRT or LRT station, and because the lights were not on and, safety wasn't really good, she got
right,
robbed and she got mugged. And when she did, one of the ministers came out and said that perhaps women should be more careful when they are traveling. And like it was a huge controversy because maybe instead of telling women they should be more careful when traveling, you can make your MRTs safer, make sure there are lighted pathways, make sure security is present, etc. Right? So I do think this sort of things hold women back because it means you cannot travel. It means you cannot stay up like after 8 or after 10 if you don't have good public transport, or if you're constantly worried about your safety. So what am I going to do with these quotas and these jobs if I don't feel safe
Right.
when I'm going out, right? It will impact the quality of my life. And this is a genuine problem. And I think for sure as a society we can do much better to address it.
And everyone is like very comfortably pointing fingers away instead of solving the root problem there itself,
Yeah,
right?
nobody wants to talk about they everybody just wants to say things like, oh, women equality, but nobody wants to say proper things. The fact that marital rape is still legal, the fact that you go to a police station to report a sexual assault case and the cops are likely to make fun of you or to ask you what you were wearing, all of these things are
Yep.
important. It's not so much as just, oh, but the government give you all everything. What else you need? Like there's more to it. There's a lot of facets to it.
Right. And it's so, I find it interesting that people tend to look at the overview on just on the front end of things without thinking about the hindsight, or how somebody may feel 10, 20, 30 years down the road, because things like this affect more than anyone would care to speak. It almost seems like when there's a wave, people tend to join in that wave without thinking of the repercussions there. And I'm so glad actually to hear that, and to get all these voices, this matters out. When I was, looking through the stuff that you did, because it was just really interesting one after one. You do a lot of host and MC, and I have to tell you the story. When I was watching the gala night, right? When I was watching
Mhm.
through, I saw you came on board with number 15. There you were, and I was, for a second, I was like, please don't trip, please say things well. And is she
Oh my
going to
God.
stutter? What's gonna happen? Because you're watching one by one. They're coming on top. They're answering the question, and then the host is like, "What problems do women feel?" And you've got like 10 seconds to give a good statement. Everyone's gonna judge you based on that. So I was like, "All right, Tess is coming. Tess is coming." The host announces Tess. And there she comes. I was like, "Don't stutter." And you came, and I don't know how, but in that split second, you spoke like really confidently. I'm sure you do all the time, but from from that particular moment, you just absolutely killed that moment. You were like, "I'm Tess, and this is what I believe in. Thank you very much, and thank you, Malaysia." Then you went back, and I was like, "Damn, I've got to ask her." So, uh, first of all, congratulations. I should say that.
Thank you.
And I'm sure the emceeing and the hosting definitely played a part into that. So how is that journey like?
Okay.
Starting to host and MC. Was it in schools, or then you branched out?
Yeah, so it definitely started from like my standard four storytelling
Go
competitions, and
ahead.
that's how it all starts, right? But it's very interesting that you said that you were saying things like "please don't trip," because that was going through my brain as well. I was like, "Don't fall, please don't fall, like don't fall, don't say the wrong things." And I remember before the going on stage, I texted my cousins and I said, "Oh my God, guys, what if I fall?" And my cousin brother, he said this thing, and I still remember it till today. He said, if you fall, it's free publicity. You're gonna like, you probably be more famous than
Oh
the
my
winner, so
God.
it's fine. So I was like, yeah, I suppose that's true. Okay, fine. Now I'm not so worried about falling. Yeah, so I was also very concerned about falling. The heels are really high.
Mm,
They're like,
I can't imagine. I mean, I wouldn't dare go anywhere near them. Let's just put it that way. And I want to ask a little bit about some questions that our audience members here have.
mhm,
How do you manage between one thing after another? Because usually, when you've gotten a particular thing, you want to aim higher, and you want to try more. So, do you have anything right now that you're aiming towards or working towards that? And how do you frame it in your mind? I want to achieve this. I want to do that next. How does that go on?
Right. I think this stems from my schooling days. I think the government school system, or matriculation even, it really trains you not to like sit very still. So you have your own schooling and classes, and immediately after that you have your coco, and then immediately after that, if your parents are kiasu like mine, then they send you to tuition, and then once you come back from school at night, you have to do your homework and stuff like that. And I think that really, that is the stepping stone. When you're not used to sitting down and just chilling and taking some me time, eventually it
Right.
spills over into your life after school as well. So that proceeds to your matriculation, that proceeded to my uni, and even with work, like I'll do work, but I also have like other things that I'm working on. Um, I think though over the years, what I've learned is it's very important to always take a step back and not get burnt out, because you
Mm-hmm.
really have so much shit going on, and eventually you will reach a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. So it's really
Yeah.
important from time to time to really take a step back and, like, sit down, chill a little bit, take some me time, go on a vacation, 1 week off, maybe 1 day off every week. It really depends on how you do it, but it's very important to take a step back.
And you're like constantly on the move. Like, what once this thing is done, you constantly move on to the next. And when you're burnt out or when you feel like you just don't want to do it, you take a moment to yourself and then you
Ye-
recalibrate. Am I
Yes.
getting a little bit about that? Cool.
Yeah, I
And
think so.
right. So how is that working out in the work life? Is it the same or is it a little bit different?
Right. I think, to be completely honest, work is like uni was a lot more challenging, not because I studied really hard, but because there was a lot of things that were going on. So like you have project discussions, this, that, debate, all of these things, right? Work. But with work, there's just work, and it's like 9 to 5, 9 to 6,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes 9 to 8. It really depends. And after that, you do have some time freed up for yourself. And I realized that is the difference between the work life and the uni life. Uni is so integrated into everything that you do, but suddenly when you go to work, everybody's talking about work-life balance, and I
Right.
don't know what that means, because when you're in uni and when you're studying is such an important part of your life, right? There's no student life balance. There's no such thing. But when you go into work, they say things like work-life balance, and then you realize, oh, there are suddenly two aspects now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a transition, and it's a learning curve. You learn as you go, I think.
What do you think about like because sorry to interrupt, you said something really interesting there on like the balance. So what do you think if somebody actually enjoyed work, right? Like if somebody really enjoyed work, then like you mentioned, there wouldn't be a work-life balance because everything would be life and you would really enjoy it the same way how we tend to enjoy student life. Thing about work is it sometimes it can get a little bit daunting. It's repetitive. Every day you're back and one day bleeds into the other. And there might come a time when you just look back and you're like, hey, a month has gone. Like right now, we're middle of June. Who knew that here we would be in this particular situation?
Right.
So, uh, in this repetitive culture, right? This
Mhm.
repetitive day, if we don't do anything, I personally think there's a lot that we're missing out. What do you think about that? Do you think that we should, constantly try out something every now and then instead of
Uh, what do
going
you
on?
mean by missing out and trying out new stuff? What does that look like?
Well, maybe a little bit of a context. This is actually a question from one of our audience members. She's been working all the time, day after day, and she feels like a need that, hey, I'm missing out something, I'm not doing this particular thing. So previously in universities, I've got this event, I go out to debating, I go out into meets and all, but now it seems like that's the same thing over. So I'm missing something there. And I'm sure you can relate to that too. Sometimes when we're missing out a certain thing, we want to try to push out beyond our boundaries. So, what do you think about that? Like pushing out boundaries, trying out new events, going out with new people. Is
Oh,
is
for
that?
sure. Yeah. I,
Mm-hmm.
I, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's really important. if you have just one thing that you're focused on, I know a lot of people say you should just focus on one thing and develop your skill sets in those sort of things, make it your niche, and that's how you market yourself. A lot of people will tell you that. Like for example, if you're a host and MC, and that is what you should focus on, and you should
Mm-hmm.
push yourself in that direction, right? Or if you're a doctor, then you should definitely just focus on your medical stuff. And if you want to be on social media, just post your medical stuff. But I personally don't. I really like variety. So like it can be as simple as learning a new type of exercise, like with yoga or something. I'm trying to unlock a new asana right now, right? So you can do those sort of things, or just picking up a skill, even if you're really shit at it, right? Like in MCO, I did embroidery like an old grandmother, and now the embroidery piece is on my
Mm-hmm.
mantle. It looks really ugly, but I had a lot of fun doing it, and it takes your
Fair enough.
mind
Yep.
off the constant thing that you're doing. You need to constantly branch out. There's this saying I really like. It's a bit rumpit, but dalam hidup semua benda kena try. So you really have to try everything,
Betul?
even if you're
Betul?
shit at it.
Betul?
Yeah,
And you're no stranger to variety. You learn Mandarin, you speak Mandarin. I just
yeah.
found that out a couple of days back. And I mean, you do a lot of things too behind the scenes. And when you want to do all of this, right? When you're doing this is the part I want to get into, one of the toughest questions so far. When you're going off and you're doing all of these things, how do you deal with judgment? That's the first thing. So how do you deal with judgment from others? And second, Tess, if you were to give yourself a piece of advice, 5 years ago, so a little Tess, what would you say to her, and how would you go about that?
Okay, I'll do the advice part because that one is really easy. So 5 years ago, I was in matriculation, I think. I would tell myself not to study so hard, chill, relax a little
Hmm.
bit. That's what I would
So
tell
you were
myself.
killing yourself. You were mostly
Oh my
killing
God, I
yourself
was
doing it.
dying. I was actually dying. Oh, I studied so hard. Not
Why?
hard enough to like, get a scholarship to go overseas, but I think I really did study really hard. Maybe I'm a little slow, but like chill a little bit. Don't study so hard. Take a chill pill. That's what I would tell myself.
That was sorry.
On
That was mostly in metrics, is it? That was in
yeah, but
metrics.
also in school as well. I think I was very hard on myself, and I did do well because I was hard on myself. But like at the end of the day, I should have. I think if I had chilled a little bit, I still would have done as well. So.
Okay, but I'm sure you're definitely grateful for that, right? When you think about it back in the past, you're like, wow, I did that, I did this, and all right. Now, how about the second, the harder one
Right.
right now?
The no judgment thing, right? So I think this one was my pageant concern as well, because I come from a brown family, and as much as we want
No,
to say that we're
no
very
kidding.
chill, friend, yeah. So it is a bit conservative, and like when I did want to join the pageant, there's a bikini round, right? And my mom was like, "You're gonna wear a bikini on stage?" Yeah. So um the judgment and the what will people say thing is definitely true, but I think the way that I deal with it is to always remember that number one, you're very insignificant. Let's face it, there are the number of people in this world is extremely large, right? You are in a very small country, in a smaller town, just one person. What you do at most can affect to like whatever that you do is not going to affect people outside your circle. Um, you're extremely insignificant in what you do. And I think it gives you freedom then, because what I do doesn't really matter. I can do whatever the fuck I want,
Right,
right?
right, true.
Yeah, because if you're like somebody big who's going to impact millions of lives and you have to be careful of every action you take, then that's something else. But you're not going to impact so many lives. As at best, you're going to impact your own life. So I
Mm-hmm.
think when you look at it that way, you really see no harm at all in putting yourself in all these different things. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
one. But also second, support system is extremely important. Whenever I want to do something, I'll always go to the people who support me the most. And they always say things like, go for it. And that just
Mm-hmm.
boosts your confidence.
I'm curious about that support system. Can you tell me more, like if you had any friends that I'm sure we all have that friend who seems supporting on the surface, but then later on seems a little intimidated of your success and you know your step up the ladder, so to speak. How did you feel about that? Did you know that you know this person is a wrong person to have in my support system? Did that help you see multiple layers of the people around you?
Okay, so I think this is an advice that I would give to like a lot of younger people, especially if you're still in school, right? I think you need to be very careful of the people that you allow into your circle, right? So you really have to be very choosy. And it's not just looking at what people say to you, it's also about looking at their actions and whatever that is underneath that, right? And when you do let people into your circle, you really have to be very careful. And if you are careful enough, hopefully this small circle that you form, it doesn't have to be like, not everybody in the circle needs to know each other. You all don't have to hold hand and sing kumbaya. Like, I keep my family separated, I
Right.
keep my friends separated, but the people who are the closest to me are truly very, very supportive of me, and they genuinely want to see me do well. And the reason I have these people in my life is, I think, because by some luck and fate, these people were meant to be in my life. But also, you have to be careful of who you let in, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
you think that this person isn't, like, good for you, or you don't want to be so, like, you don't want to say such things because you think they might not be very happy for you, then I think it goes back into not being secretive, but being humble. You need to lace your words, your action, and your success with humility. And when you do that, you don't have to deal with people who will get jealous of your success, right? So you really need to be careful.
Just hearing from you, then I'm already, you know, super lifted, super uplifted. I think that's something unique that you have there, and I'm so glad I got the chance to speak to you here today. We're almost approaching our time. I just want to sneak in one more question because of
Okay.
something you said earlier. When you mentioned a little bit about you know, knowing the friends we have around us, knowing who we are. What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out, especially to the women, because you know they've got lots more dreams, and I think they definitely should be empowered. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out, but is you know kind of a little insecure about how they are as a person?
Okay. So, right, here's the thing. It's very easy to say, just love yourself. Just focus on
Right.
what's inside. Don't compare yourself. But it's very
That's
difficult to actually do it, right?
that's super common advice, and you know
Yeah,
something general like that does not give you any value. That's what everyone says.
exactly. Like, everybody says these things. You gotta not compare yourself, and you gotta just be happy within. And like, just be happy with who you are and your progress and your success. And as much as this is very generic and helpful advice, it's really not easy to do, right? And so I think
Hmm.
it all goes back to how much of a responsibility you hold towards yourself. If so, let me just explain this concept. If you respect yourself, and if you respect yourself, you will feel a sense of responsibility towards yourself. It is your responsibility to be healthy, physically fit, but also mentally strong. So then, if you have this responsibility towards yourself, you need to do whatever that is in your power to fulfill this responsibility. Because nobody's going to help you out. Everybody's going to say shit, but nobody's going to actually do the work for you. You need to do the groundwork. If you are physically insecure about your body, then put in the work. It's going to take time. Eventually, you will get there. But also, be happy with your progress. As long as you know that you're putting in work, then it's great. You don't look at people and you don't say things like, I'm not going to compare myself with them. What you can do is you can get inspired of other people. So if this is a fitness and a health
Right.
thing. You look at them and you're like, if they can do it, then I can do it too. Find somebody whose journey is similar to yours. You are in an age of social media, right? If you have acne, there are people who are talking about acne positivity. If you have problems with how your body looks, there are people who talk about body positivity. If you think that, you have a confidence issue, you don't know how to talk, there are a lot of people out there who are really confident and they portray it on social media. Follow these sort of people, curate the content. This is the responsibility that you have towards yourself. When you take action to overcome the insecurities, then you become less insecure. Then it's a step-by-step process. Obviously, there will be days when you feel like shit, but it will come back. Like, you will make progress, right? It's not enough to just sit down and say, yeah, I'm not going to compare myself with others, because it's not easy. Everybody's going to say you don't know how to do it. The best way to take is actually to take action. Curate your social media, see the people who you follow, have a strong support system, write down things, how you're feeling. If you feel good today, what did you do? The next time you feel shit, come back, look at it. So this is what I did. All of this is you fulfilling your responsibility towards yourself. Does that make sense?
Very, very, very well said. I could not have articulated that in a better way. Love it.
Right.
Love yourself and respect who you are. You're responsible for who you are. Constantly put in the effort and keep on moving forward. So, wow, Tess, uh, really enjoyed speaking to you. We're almost approaching our time, and you're in Selangor. Maybe I will hit you up one of these days.
Yes,
I'm here too, at least for the time being. You're still here, right, in Selangor, or
I am. I'm full-time in Selangor now.
okay? Which part?
I stay in Seri Kembangan now, but I work in Damansara.
Got you, got you. Well, I'm sure a lot of young kids, or I should say, everyone got a lot over there and is super inspired. I must, this is genuinely from me, even myself, super inspired learning about your journey. So, I wish you all the best and thank you so much
Thank you.
for joining and have a great night, Tess.
Thank you. Thank you
I'll
so
I'll
much.
catch you
I had
soon.
a great time as well. See you around.
Right. Take care, Tess.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.